Welcome in. Music's still playing. We're still vibing. That's what you get, though, when you don't have Ralph Leary in the show. Welcome in to the crowded booth as we get ready for a little bit of Talkin' Tuesdays here on a Tuesday night. Obviously, if you've been paying attention, we haven't done these in a while. We're back at it. We're going to recap and react to the college football playoff rankings that just came out. And then we're going to take your calls. We're going to open up the phone lines to hear whatever you want to talk about. And by the looks of the comments today on the YouTube channel, we're going to get some aggressive but not violent. Don't be violent. We can't get any violent comments. We'll be here in just a second, right here on the crowded booth.
Pile in here and make yourself feel at home. The crowded booth is coming on. The crowded booth with Bryce Koon.
Welcome in to the crowded booth. My name is Bryce Koon alongside Will Manis. And Will, no Ralph tonight. Ralph's not feeling good, but that's okay. We'll carry the ship anyway, because there was about a month-long period where you and I just did. I think Ralph was on one show. He got sidelined from work, so he had to go work night shift. I don't think he was on a show for about 3 or 4 weeks solid in a row, but that's okay. So how are you doing on this fine Tuesday evening as we get ready for, we just saw the penultimate college football playoff rankings released.
Trying to stay warm. I mean, it has gotten cold. Winter has shown up with no warning, it seems like.
Yeah,
it's cold. Not a lot of fun when it's cold.
It's going to be cold. Have you looked at the temperature in Charlotte this weekend, by the way?
Have not. I'm scared to.
Right now in Charlotte, which if it holds, it's 27 degrees. So Gavin says freeze warning. Could be. Dr. Bob says portal season. That's also true. Very crazy portal season. But hey, we're excited to be coming to you here on a Tuesday night. Yeah. Comments. Will, where's your jersey, number 91?
Do I go get it?
Yes. Show the people.
I will show the people. I'll be right back.
All right. So he's going to be right back. I did get the fellas some awesome stuff they had coming in the mail. So Ralph, not here to show off his stuff, but pause. Ralph not here to show off what he had coming in the mail, so we will let Will show here in just a second. But if you're not familiar with what we do here on Tuesday nights, we like to open up the phone lines. We'd like to hear from you, your thoughts on the college football weekend. We're going to start it off, though, by reacting to the playoff, and that'll be here in just a second. And we're excited to talk about it because this playoff ranking has gotten we're at a point where we're arguing about 12 through 15, and the reality is none of these teams should be playing for a playoffs, for a national championship. None of these teams should be earning the right to play in a championship game. And that's what we try to tell you. Look at that. That is sick. Air Force number 91.
You told me where you got this from.
I'm not telling you. By the way, that's game worn. Nameplate taken off, game worn. That's sick. That is way better than it looked on the picture. So we'll have to get that hung up. Ralph's got his hung. He's got one. He's got, I believe, one now. So, well, they're not giving out Auburn jerseys. That's what I know. Auburn jerseys are not out there on the market right now. I can tell you that.
Who would want one of those?
I don't know. I saw y'all had a punter go in the portal today. So
I didn't even know Auburn had a backup punter. Maybe we should have seen him, considering the last couple games by Oscar Chapman.
We're going to talk about college football playoff reaction. Goldfellas starts it off with this. Will, I was just kind of saying as you walked away, he goes, none of Bama, Ole Miss, Miami, or South Carolina could win the championship. It's not that I don't think they could win it. This is the issue we're kind of sitting here with, is that we're kind of in this mode where we're arguing 12 through 15, which, look, we all three sat here last year and said this is going to be a situation where we're arguing about who's the least worst, if that makes sense, team that could get in. But I also think, too, Will, like, I don't fully agree with that they couldn't win it. I just don't think they've deserved the opportunity to go play for a championship. That's the problem with the expansion of the playoff, is that you're arguing about teams that none of them deserve. They didn't do what they needed to do, which was win football games. So I don't, there's not a team on that list that Goldfellas said there that doesn't have that only has one loss. I can get behind a one-loss team. 2 losses, you have to have some really, really good wins. That's why I'm in on Georgia being at 10-2 in the playoff race. Outside of that, it's some bad losses. So I don't know. Before we kind of kick this thing off, do you echo that sentiment that the expansion has now pulled us into a conversation of, well, who doesn't look as bad so they can get in?
Yeah, we're arguing about mediocre teams at this point.
Yeah.
3 lost teams, or a couple of 3 lost teams. You look at those 3 SEC teams. I saw a lot of talk about them today, obviously, and a lot of people make a lot of good points. You've got South Carolina. They've won 6 straight games. We talked about them last
Mhm.
night. They're the hottest team in the country. I don't think anybody in the playoff would want to see them with all that momentum they have. Ole Miss, they probably have the best win of that group, but also the worst
Yeah.
loss. Are sharing the best win with Alabama, I guess. But Alabama has just as bad, well, not quite as bad of a loss as Ole Miss, but that 21-point loss to Oklahoma is a real
Pretty
black
bad.
mark on that resume. As far as Miami, I think talent-wise, Miami's got a team that could probably go on a playoff run, but they couldn't beat Syracuse, and they lost at a really bad time
Mhm.
because they still had everything in front of them. That's why I bring up the Syracuse game. They were trying to play their way in, whereas the other 3 teams needed help, and they may have got one of those teams may have gotten help. One of those teams may have helped themselves. We'll have to
Yeah.
see. But to Goldfella's comment about saying none of them could win the championship, maybe it's the anger and hatred inside of me. Maybe it's because we've seen it happen before. Alabama's probably going to go on a run and probably play for the national championship. I mean, we saw an Alabama team that wasn't even good enough to win their own division, but they were given a national championship in the 14 playoff. But we said it when they placed Alabama at 13, they were hoping somebody would lose so they could put Alabama in the top 12 because of the brand, because of brand value. That's all it is. And I saw a couple different people with this take. Yeah, and their Goldfellow regarded Alabama is regarded highly solely because they are the biggest brand of the 4. There's no doubt about it. Ohio State, they're at 6 in position to host a playoff game, and Alabama is 11. That's the SEC in the Big Ten flexing their muscle.
Here, I got it for you.
Solely what that is.
Yeah. I've got we got a hypothetical down there from Papa Goat that I want to get to. So let's take a look at this real quick. Is that too small, Will, or can you see that? Are you good with that?
I can see it, yeah.
Okay, perfect. So we'll bring it in a little bit right here. Yeah. So here we go. Here's kind of those rankings. You take a look at what we're looking at here. This is what stands out to me, is this consistent case of the Mountain West champ just being in the playoff. Now, what happens, I'll say this, if Boise State wins out, the committee has shown us that they're willing to put them in as the 4 seed, as seen in previous weeks, regardless of how you feel about Arizona State. If UNLV somehow beats Boise State this week, I'm going to flip Arizona State in the Mountain West champion. And I think the committee would probably do the same in that sense. I think that they would. They've got SMU winning the ACC title. Well, apologies. This is not based off projections. I think it's strictly based off of the record in conference. They're not projected.
Based off ranking. Yeah.
So that's why SMU's in there's the 3rd seed. Now, when you get to this, Alabama, Notre Dame in South Bend, that'd be awesome. Indiana coming to Georgia.
Poor Indiana.
Yeah, I don't
Poor
love
Indiana.
that matchup. I don't love that matchup.
I saw some hypothetical lines. Let me see if I can pull them really quick. I think everybody's favorite, Josh Pate, got these from FanDuel and put them out. Yes. So this is from FanDuel, their hypothetical, what their lines would be for every projected first round game.
Mm-hmm.
They have Penn State as an 11.5 point favorite over Arizona State.
Okay.
Notre Dame as a 3.5 point favorite over Alabama. Georgia a 12.5 point favorite over Indiana. And Sam Lord is about to burn something down when he hears Ohio State a 9 point favorite over Tennessee. I'll tell you this. I would be, if I was to bet on these games, I'd be taking all the favorites except for Tennessee. 9 points.
I could get with that. And you're talking about just against the spread. You're not talking about money line or anything like
against
that.
the spread. Yeah,
Yeah.
Tennessee
No, I'm
to
cool with
cover
that.
that 9. That would be a really fun game, especially with that big of a spread. That'd be a fun game.
Ken Henderson says let Notre Dame get that line. It'll flip in about 2 hours. Who knows? I feel like a lot of people might try to put that plus 3.5 on Alabama, that it would shrink down. You'd see it maybe get to around 2 or 1, maybe.
Actually, take that back. I would take Arizona State plus 11.5 against Penn State. Just like because that is a matchup that I think, we've said if this is what the top 12 is, we've said time and again that you probably want to be the 5 seed. Not if the 12 seed is going to be Arizona State. Arizona State can create a lot of problems. They can create some madness in this bracket. Looking at this, Georgia has the best draw. If I'm Georgia, I'm happy. If this is what we're looking at next week, next Tuesday night, if this is the bracket, the Georgia Bulldogs are going to be real happy.
Well, I'll say this: you're on the easier side of the bracket with the ACC champ there at 3. But the thought process is, if you win, you're number 2 seed, which you still like. If you lose, you could find yourself in that 8-9 matchup, or maybe even in the 6-11. I mean, or the 6-11, or that you could slide to 10, and we could see
Georgia.
If you're Georgia, if you lose,
this
SEC
has them
championship.
Projected losing to Texas because Texas has a better conference record. So if this has Georgia.
Do you think they would drop though with 3 losses? I'm saying though, at 10-3,
where would
they fall?
Unless Ward Manuel's lying.
Well, that's also a possibility as well.
I mean, he essentially said tonight that the games this weekend, they really just determine who gets a first round bye and who doesn't.
Can they make this thing any more obvious that they don't want this?
The
first title games don't mean anything. I mean, geez.
That was the gist of what he said. That's what I took from what he said.
Well, you know what?
He said teams that aren't playing this weekend can't move ahead to other teams that are not playing this weekend. Like, it was a word salad, but to me it was like, oh, so the games this weekend don't matter. It just determines who gets a first round bye.
I've got the transcript right here, Will. And I am trying to find that point.
Gavin says, I'd rather see South Carolina than Penn State or Ole Miss even. I don't know. I mean, we know James Franklin can't win a big game. But give him a home playoff game? I don't know. Hunker Down Dog says, do you think they would put a Georgia-Alabama first round? I do.
Yes, I will read this real quick. The question was asked tonight by Ward to Ward Manuel. He goes, the question is there a wish trying not to match up teams from the same conference? Does that enter into it at all? Ward Manuel responds, not at all. We don't think of those things. Actually, the commissioners have actually said they don't want us thinking about those things. We rank the top 25 the way committee sees them, and they happen to be from the same conference and play against each other wins. You also conversely asking me to give the demerits to teams who a team beat who lose the championship. And then he goes on to just word salad his way through the rest of the answer. But
did you hear the key part there?
What was it?
The commissioners don't want us to do that. So they're lobbying, which we all knew they were publicly, but they're doing it privately too.
Well, here's the thing too. The one thing they didn't mention, he didn't say, ESPN.
Yep.
ESPN wants the glorified matchups. ESPN would rather see Tennessee, Ohio State than Georgia, Tennessee again in the first round. So
ESPN doesn't really want to see Georgia and Indiana play at all. I don't think.
Well, yeah. So that was Hunker Down Dogs. Appreciate you tuning in. Goldfell asks, as SMU loses, are they out? Now, I will say this. I don't think so. Because, God, I'm going to be ticked off if SMU gets knocked out. Because if you're going to sit there and say in so many words the championship games don't matter, then, golly, dude, if like Miami, I don't know. What do you think,
Will? It makes me sick to think this, but I think it'll happen. The loser of the ACC championship game is out, and Alabama takes their spot, which is what this projected bracket is showing us. So even if it is SMU you have Clemson as the 12 seed, and Alabama's in there at 11.
Could definitely happen. God, I hope not. And that's not just because we love SMU. It's just in general.
If they do that, it's honestly sick. It's honestly sick. But SMU is a strange one because there's brand value here that a lot of people, especially our age, I don't think realize or understand. That the older, the past generations, there's a lot of brand value with SMU. There's also a lot of money.
Yeah.
We've talked a lot about that, but there is some brand value with SMU.
Yeah, it's true. That's true. It's gonna be interesting to see. I just struggle to maintain Will, and I want to get back to Montega's question from earlier because he threw out a hypothetical one here, and so did Gavin. I don't know if there's a way. I just can't fathom putting Ole Miss in. I just can't do it. But the problem is that they're going to have to. There's going to be a precedent set, right? The precedent is going to be, and here's why I think Alabama has to get in. Will is because if you put in Ole Miss, then you're saying that really bad loss to Kentucky at home, we're just going to forget about it. If you put in South Carolina, who I would think a lot of people would like to see in the playoff, then you're saying, well, head-to-head really doesn't matter because Ole Miss went there and slapped them. Alabama didn't play
a popularity contest.
Yes, and they would further show that. If Alabama gets in, you can justify that. And I know you don't like this by saying, well, they beat South Carolina on their home field, and they don't have as bad of a loss. We think that the loss against Oklahoma isn't as bad as the loss against Kentucky. So that's the rationalization.
He went 4-8.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So that would be the rationalization of Alabama getting in over Ole Miss and South Carolina. So I think that would be that.
But on the flip side, you look at Ole Miss's resume. I mean, I think of those three, I don't know, just that Kentucky loss just kills them. Kills them because you look at ranked wins, you look at common opponents. They beat the brakes off South Carolina at South Carolina. Alabama struggled to beat them at home. I mean,
yeah.
Just that.
That's what I'm saying. It's going to set a precedent. We're going to learn about what they really value because they're in a conundrum now where they really have to show their hand on what they're really talking about. Papa Goat says, say Georgia Tech doesn't crap the bed against Syracuse and takes care of Louisville and finishes the draw against Georgia. 7-5, they'd be 10-2. There's a 10-2 Tech team with 3 top 10 wins get into the College Football Playoff. All right, let's do this real quick, Will, because if they would have beat Cuse and beat Louisville, the losses would have been out of conference to Notre Dame. And then the other loss would have been.
I think that puts them in the ACC championship game.
Who's the other loss?
Standings.
Virginia Tech.
So Georgia Tech went 5-3 in conference. They were tied with Syracuse and Louisville. They win those 2 games. They're 7-1.
Yeah.
I don't know how the tiebreakers work because that was the same conference record as Clemson.
But here you go. Think about it. They have the common opponent. They would have beaten Louisville. And Clemson lost to Louisville. So it'd be SMU, Georgia Tech in the ACC title game.
And Georgia Tech, getting hypothetical on rankings, would probably been in the top 12. I think they'd have been solidly in the top 12, maybe between 9 and 12. I would
because
probably
those 3 top 10 wins are huge.
Yes.
And that was what would carry them.
And I think if a 10-2 Georgia Tech team with, beating Syracuse and Louisville and beating Georgia, then the ACC championship game would only determine who gets a first round bye.
Now, here's my question. The 3 top 10 wins would be against who?
Florida State, Georgia.
And Miami.
Yes, and Miami. Yes.
Now, here's the problem against that. The wins against Georgia and Miami would prop them up. My question is, and it's not my question, it's not I'm questioning it, it's my question to the committee. Do they value that win against Florida State the same they did that given week? And that goes not just for Georgia Tech, but just for anybody. I don't know. I don't know their stance on that. So, time out. Let's just pause. Hypothetically, listen to me here. I'm not saying that the win against Florida State wasn't a good win. What I am saying is, I do really wonder. I don't know how the committee views that. Do they say, "Yep, in that microcosm of that week, that was a top 10 win," or do you take all the data points? That's what I'm saying. I don't know, and I don't know how they would answer that question, to be honest.
Do you remember the comments last night when I said SMU put a beat down on the flagship program of the ACC?
I do
in
remember
Florida
the comments. Montego wasn't a part of it here, but I do
was
remember the
not.
comments.
He was not.
So shout out
That's
Montego.
fair.
Yeah,
That's
that's
fair.
fair. But I do remember the comments that were laughed about it. So if you're going to value SMU's wins against Florida State, or you're going to devalue that one, you can't value it against that. I don't know. That's interesting. I really don't know how they would look at it, Will, to be honest with you.
It's really hard to say because the committee is an enigma. Nobody knows what they're looking for. They put out all these things saying what they're looking for, but then the way they rank teams, it's like they don't even use their criteria.
Ken Andrews, Bryce, you're assuming this committee has any reason behind why they do something. Yeah, no, that's true.
Yeah.
Declan says they really give us a freebie into the semis, a Notre Dame fan. Ooh, talking big game there, Declan.
I will say, you can't sleep on the ponies. You cannot sleep on SMU.
Yeah, because now in this scenario too, from what I understand, is that the top-ranked team will get to pick their quarterfinal bowl selection place. Let me get you real quick here.
Well, Boise would not get a pick because
they would. No, yeah.
They get
so
the fourth pick, so they get what they get. So you got to think Oregon will take the Rose Bowl. Texas would take
Sugar Bowl
or Fiesta. Would they take Fiesta? Probably got to be Sugar, right?
Probably. SMU would probably take the Fiesta.
Or would they take Peach?
I have no idea, to be honest with you. It's Fiesta, Peach, Rose, and Sugar Bowl. So I don't know.
Now I'm kind of selfishly saying SMU would take the Peach Bowl.
Well, because if they do that, you know where you're going to be that weekend.
But it's hard. I mean, Oregon would definitely take the Rose Bowl. Texas, you're probably right. Sugar Bowl, there's much. Sugar Bowl is just a much better looking bowl than the Fiesta Bowl. Although Boise would probably love to be handed the Fiesta Bowl.
Statue of Liberty, baby. Yeah.
Yep. They would love it.
Yeah.
No Cotton Bowl.
Cotton and Orange Bowl are the semifinal games.
Okay. So if the Cotton Bowl was a quarterfinal game, would Texas take the Cotton Bowl?
I mean, if SMU gets it, they're playing in their hometown. They're playing literally in their backyard.
Right. Yeah. I mean, yeah.
Texas would travel.
Picking that, it's like, would you rather play SMU or would you rather play who they're playing? So you kind of, there's some strategy to this. Like, are you going to let SMU get a game, kind of a home game? Or do you take it and make SMU travel a little bit?
Okay, let me add this thing to you. We know different fan bases travel well. Mm-hmm. Don't travel well. If I'm Texas and I take the Sugar Bowl, you know Georgia's going to go to New Orleans. Like, you know that's going to happen.
It's happened before.
It's happened before in that game.
We're back.
Killed Uga. I mean, it was wild. So I don't know, man. I think it's interesting. Like, if I'm Oregon, I'm taking the Rose Bowl and I'm making Tennessee, if they win, travel all the way out there, which they will. Like Tennessee, Ohio State, Bama, Notre Dame, Georgia, they're gonna bring a lot. Of people.
They're all gonna travel. Yeah. Indiana will travel because they've never seen this before.
Because it's SIG, baby. That's why.
Would Penn State travel? I think that's the question.
I guess they would. I don't know a lot. I truly don't know a lot about the Penn State fan base, in terms of that. So you go Sam Bellington
would, because it wouldn't be snowing.
It's also true. Okay, that's College Football Playoff. Will, anything else that just stands out to you? I mean, I will be honest with you. I don't hate this. Like, there's a lot of variety. There's a lot of diversity in this. I just don't hate it because. Well, tell me, why do you hate this? Other than the fact of being a 12-team playoff,
Alabama shouldn't be in the playoff. They've got 3 losses, and
would you put Miami in over them?
Yes, I would.
Okay, so you'd rather see Miami in the 11th spot? Yeah,
and because you look at Miami's 2 losses, Georgia Tech and Syracuse. Listen to what I'm going to say. Listen to the words. Listen to the words. I don't know where Bryce is going, but now Bryce can't hear me. He's not even going to hear me. Now we got to wait. Wait. Great podcasting right here. because Bryce just gets up and walks away. Listen to what I'm going to say. Miami's losses to Georgia Tech and Syracuse. Not only is it only 2 losses compared to Alabama's 3, I don't think they're as bad of losses. They're certainly better losses than Oklahoma. Certainly.
It's 2 road losses, right?
Right. 2 road losses. I think Miami is far more deserving than Alabama. But again, this is the thing we heard forever. It's not the most deserving. It's the 4 best teams. Da, 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 da. But I don't know. I think Miami is more deserving.
I can get on board with that. I'm cool with Miami being in over Alabama.
And also, you talked about our Georgia Tech hypothetical. Do they value week to week that situation?
Yeah.
At the time, that South Carolina game looked terrible for Alabama. It looked really bad.
Yeah.
Now, South Carolina winning 6 in a row to finish the year makes that look better. But at the time, it looked really, really bad. Upstart Vanderbilt. But they were still Vanderbilt.
It's a road loss.
It's a road loss
Kind
to
of.
Vanderbilt. And, am I trying for brownie points here by saying?
Well, let's just say this. I think the losses to Syracuse
is going to Atlanta harder than going to Nashville? Is that Am I looking for brownie points?
Outside of the fact that you could get arrested for a DUI, yes. I think that the police presence in Nashville is a little more strict than the police presence in Atlanta. That's what I would say. No, I agree with you.
I think those 2 losses for Miami, shocking as they might have been, I still think shouldn't drop them all the way out of the playoff.
That's fair. I'm okay with that. I'm cool with that. I'm glad Clemson dropped out of it. We don't talk about them anymore. Hey, by the way, I know I showed this on the show the other night. Georgia Tech ban hammer. If you want it, subscribe to the YouTube channel. We're going to be giving this thing away. I don't know when, but if you want it, we're going to pack it up and ship it to you. Will's has one on the way. Shout out to the person who made this for me. I got an LSU one right here. So if you want this, I will tell you this. Unfortunately, the person who made this, nobody can get the Georgia Tech gold right. Although this isn't terrible, but pretty sick. If you want this, let us know.
If you want to be entered, Venmo me $5.
Oh. Okay, well, there's that too.
Just kidding. I'm just kidding.
Goldfella said GT Banhammer is beautiful. Dibs on the Tech hammer, please. Hey, well, we're gonna do a little contest. We'll do a contest. So make sure you're subscribed, and you gotta get people to subscribe to the YouTube channel, and we're gonna be giving that out. Okay. Where's my hat? The hats are en route to me, so they had to come from the distributor to get to me. That's what that is. Bryce can give me that hat, Banhammer, over a Caniac lunch, Caniac combo. Hashtag not an ad. Goldfella says this, and we'll move
Please
over.
come to Columbus.
The not most deserving, we look for the best teams. It just feels like cope. I hate to say it, but if you wanted to put the 4 best teams in last year, Georgia would have been. It's an excuse.
Yep.
I'm with you there.
Agree.
I'm with you there. All right, we're going to take a quick break. When we do come back, we are going to open up the phone lines. It's going to be fun, and we're going to have fun. So make sure to do that, and we'll be right back here in just 1 second. We'll see you.
Your soap is ugh, and your body wash is a synthetic detergent. But you're not a dish. You're a man. Switch to Dr. Squatch Natural Soap for Men. For men who build things. Open pickle jars on the first try. Slay dragons. And let their daughters braid their hair. Men who like to feel good and smell titillating. Dr. Squatch takes you places you never thought you'd go. Naked.
All right, back here in the crowded booth. If you like Dr. Squatch, you want to get that gift for the holidays, make sure you use code Bryce Koon, all uppercase, to get $10 off your first $20 purchase or more in that sense. Hey, it's a great deal. It's one of the better deals that we've got going on, so make sure you do that. All right, Will, it is about that time. We are going to get ready to open up the phone lines, and we're going to hear from you. Talkin' Tuesday is officially underway, and we are getting ready to talk a little ball with some fun people. So I'm sure this will go well. I'm so glad that we've never had to screen a call because we don't have that capability with our technology, but we fly by the seat of our pants and we kind of see what's We'd like to see what happens. So without further ado, let's go. Here we go. Opening up the phone lines. We'll put the number right there. Make sure you hit it. I got to get the number. Call the show at 225-317-9613. And we'll go through. We'd love to hear from you because I think this is going to be interesting. Will, any kind of on this playoff, like regardless of how we feel about it, this is going to be fun. Like we're going to watch it. Are you excited to watch the 12-team playoff as a college football fan or no?
Depends on what game it is. I mean, I'm worried we're going to see blowouts like we saw in the 1 versus 4 a lot in the 14 playoff.
I'm with you. Can you hear the phone ringing, by the way? You got the audio? All right, here we go.
This is Dr. Bob calling from New Orleans, Louisiana.
Oh.
No, I have a work function down here over the next couple
Bryce,
of days.
I can't hear you
I'm
now.
sitting up in a nice swanky hotel overlooking the Caesars Superdome right now as we anticipate the college football season or college football playoff season. And just wanted to talk about conflicts of interest in the college football playoff, specifically as it relates to last Friday. I was talking with my best man's dad, and he's a Michigan fan, so he has no dog in the proverbial clean old-fashioned hate fight. But he was even talking to me just about, as he was watching the game go on, seeing, the SEC on ESPN, the commentary, well, if Georgia, wins this game, it doesn't matter what happens in the SEC title game. And, just seeing Tech should have made the plays to win the game. That's on us. It was a hard-fought game. Georgia ended up winning. That's what the scoreboard says at the end. It's just tough to me as a fan, seeing the way that the officiating was handled during the game and seeing the sort of meta narrative in college football, well, the SEC is the toughest conference, and, knowing that there is money on the line, that there is media, rights and all of that kind of stuff on the line. Just, you start thinking as a college football fan, just about the integrity of the game. And, he was telling me this is why he watches the NFL over college football, because he said you got 32 teams, everybody's playing by the same rules, you know exactly what all the tiebreakers are. You don't have this committee that's trying to make some sort of subjective decision. And so I just wanted to sort of, get your thoughts, Bryce, just regarding, the fact that you have a committee making this decision. There's going to be subjectivity and just the sort of, conflicts of interest that seem to impact not only the selection, but, potentially even the way certain games are handled. Because, it does, just kind of make you sit back as a college football fan and, question certain things about the way where the game is headed. Yeah. Of course, brother. All right. We'll talk to you soon. Thanks, Bryce.
Cannot. Nope. Can't hear you. You might have to remove the phone and bring it back. Nope. Nope. Bryce has broken his microphone. Nothing. All right. Still don't have any. I can't read lips, and so Bryce is gone trying to fix his mic. So yeah, Dr. Bob talked about officiating and kind of the biases, and I've seen a lot of talk about that with conferences having officials, conference officials.
You know.
Oh, there you are.
Okay.
Kind of like faded in there. That was interesting.
That was weird. Okay. Sorry about that.
But having conference officials, there's always going to be biases, and it was a good point. I learned it from the comment section during the show last night. The head referee in Clean Old Fashioned Hate evidently was his first year as an SEC official. I have seen him for the last decade as an ACC official.
Mhm.
So it's very strange. And I know a lot of these non-conference rivalry games, the road team gets the officiating crew to try to keep things more fair. I don't know if that's exactly the case, but that's kind of the trend. But yeah, there's a lot of money involved. When you have all that money involved, there's going to be biases. And then when you have just the way that rules are written, there's just going to be biases by these officials. It's been beaten to death, but you can call holding on every play. That comes down to a judgment. Targeting comes down to a judgment call. For almost every scenario. So until you can make the rules more black and white, I don't know that you can get biases out of it.
Yeah, you can hear me, by the way, right?
Yes.
You're good to go. Okay, we're not gonna go with the call line here for a second because I got to figure something out. So if you want, go ahead and get your questions in here and we can ask them. I do know we have one caller that really wants to get on the line, so I'll bring it back for him. But okay, so let's go back and paint this picture of what Dr. Bob was talking about. I don't want to say that there's absolutely no bias in college football because that's not true. I know that. Will knows that. We all understand that. I think when you talk about bias, there's parts of it that are true that prop it up, and then parts of it that are extrapolated into not fantasies, but extrapolated over time that you kind of just say, oh yeah, that's just because it is how it is because it is, like that type of thing, and that's the argument. Do I think that the SEC is the toughest conference to play in? I do. I feel like there are data points in terms of NFL draft picks, in terms of recruiting rankings, in terms of all different types of stuff that back up that sentiment. Does it mean that year in, year out, that your SEC team that emerges is always going to be the best team in college football? No, there's a lot of variables in this sport. Anything can happen. And I think we could see that, I think, in the playoff. But to Dr. Bob's point, Will, and I got to hear the back half of what you said here, to eliminate the bias is to move to the NFL model, right? And we're starting to see that now because the portal hasn't really officially opened up, but it's about to, where you're sitting in this sense of a lot of people talking about revenue sharing and salary cap. And I think that's a step towards eliminating bias because then you're going to see if everyone's got the same cap, yeah, it's still on you to spend the money and to work up to that. Some teams are not going to be able to spend, let's just say it's a $20 million cap or a $15 million cap. They're not going to be able to spend that. But at least it gives a limit to what teams can do. It doesn't allow for limitless NIL, which I know a lot of people pay attention to social media. I don't believe in limitless NIL. I don't think that exists. I think a lot of these, and I know that a lot of these numbers are never paid out in terms of that. It's not, because there's nothing holding either side to anything. So I think that's a step into eliminating bias. My question is, and I talk a lot of things about this when I thought about to you is, when you have this going the way it's gone forever, like we've always had the SEC and the ACC and the Big Ten. I don't think that you could just turn it on its head and say, all right, we're going to go NFL model. It's all going to be regionally based. And regardless of whatever, your ranking is what it is. Because I'll tell you this, in the NFL, you like to think that it's that way, but it's really not. Do you remember the year that the Seahawks went 7-9 and won the division and got a bye? Now they fixed that a little bit, but they got a bye and they ended up beat the Saints, who won the NFC South or one of the wild card that year. The whole thing of this is that you can't, nothing's created equally in sports and in life, really. But you're never going to be able to pull back and change stuff in college football because we've already seen it. There's data points to show that said conference is better. You can infer that in the NFL based off of what you think you see, But I'll be honest with you, I don't understand where a lot of people come from in the sense that the NFL it's better in that sense, because I still think, like, I don't think all divisions are created equally. I mean, like, for example, like the AFC South, I don't think the AFC South is as hard as the AFC North. So if the AC, so I don't necessarily understand that in terms of where people think, and maybe you can explain to me, maybe you think I'm wrong. I don't know where, just because it's that way doesn't mean that there's still not biases there too.
Yeah, and NFL officiating, I think there's been a lot of examples of bias and of rigging games, so to say. I think it's a little bit harder to see. I mean, and even harder to do, because you're talking about professionals who are at the very, very top of their game. I hadn't seen Jonesy in here tonight, but he'll be clicking off when he hears this. College football has got to look toward European soccer. I mean, when you have this many teams and look at the models that they have in Europe in soccer, it makes the most sense. Promotion, relegation. If you go back to the 90s, the Champions League, the very first iteration of the Champions League was only teams that won their domestic league, and they went and played in a tournament against other champions. Why don't we go back to regional conferences and only the conference champions make the playoff? And then your highest, I mean, throw in all the group of five, the Conference USA champ can play the SEC or the Big Ten champ and get beat up. But you know what? Hey, they were the champions. They got a seat at the table. They earned it. They won their conference. End of story. That makes conference championship games matter. That makes everything matter, because and keep it the way it is. No divisions in the SEC, no division in the Big Ten, none in the Big 12, none in the ACC. Get away from divisions. Your top two play a conference championship game. I think that's the way to keep it, because you only play 12 games in a season. You got to win your games to get there. And then, like, if you're Ole Miss, if they lose that game to Kentucky, but they're going to win the SEC, that game against Kentucky doesn't matter. You can say that, it makes the regular season not matter, but you want to talk about being fair and being as little biased as possible. Just do it that way. All the conference champs. That's your playoff. No at-large.
Dr. Bob said, and he is right in this, and I was mistaken. They didn't get a bye. January 8th of 2011, an 11-5 Saints team went to a 7-9 Seahawks team in the wild card round. The NFL rules were based off division winners getting a home game. Yeah, okay, so correct. And they've changed that now since, which I agree with. I understand what you're saying in this. I don't think that we can just...
Gavin loved my monologue.
He loved that. Also, the call line back open here, so you want to call in 225-317-9613. I don't know how you can go back down. You can turn around and go backwards. That's what I feel like, because you just mentioned right there, well, the Conference USA, Bryce, could play the SEC. But if you go to regional, everyone still thinks the southeastern part of the country is the best region for college football. And that's ingrained in people's minds. I don't know how you get rid of that.
You talk about the transfer portal real quick. I think the portal we're seeing it is evening the playing field across the top levels. It's not trickling down, but I think at the top it's evening out just a little bit.
Very fair. Can you still hear me?
Yes.
Okay, you let me know if you can't hear me when I start talking here. All right.
Lost you. When you answer the phone, your audio goes away. Nope, you're gonna have to go out and back in just like you did. This is what happens when you don't do this for a month.
Hi, my name is Sam Lord. I'm calling from Columbus, Georgia. So I was kind of watching this past week's show, and I noticed there are some comments made about what Will said about it being a perfect play when the fumble happened and Dan Jackson laid the hit on Haynes King. And I want to just kind of paint it this way. They ran quarterback power, and that is a physical football play. And Dan Jackson met it with a physical football play, putting the head on the ball. People have been raving about Cooper DeJean's hit on Derrick Henry all week. claiming it is textbook tackling. Cooper DeJean drops his head in the tackle. Just FYI. On top of this, earlier in the game, there is a hit made on a 4-yard carry. Will has the picture.
Where's his head at? Where's his head at, folks? We can't hear Sam now. Is he still talking? Yeah, we can't hear him. It's probably because I threw the
putting his head on the football, trying to make a football play, is targeting and is against the rules for just literally doing this. There's just no way that we can just say that he is targeting and this is bad. Thank you.
All right, Bryce is going to get his audio back working again. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of the comments coming after me, accusing me of things, which there was a comment saying that I was advocating for violence. Look, I didn't know that this was such a secret, but the game of American tackle football is inherently violent and inherently dangerous. If you're worried about getting hurt on a football field, you shouldn't step on the field. Now, that being said, I think, the rules to curb some of the unnecessary violence and the lifelong effects that some of that the game has on some people is very admirable, and I think it's good for the long-term outlook of football. But football, you can't get away from football, what football is at its core. And I feel like I've been saying it for the last 10 years, starting with the roughing the passer emphasis that the NFL put on just some weak touches, not even hits on a quarterback, touches on a quarterback, given a 15-yard penalty, and Ralph, he's heard me say it. Sam's heard me say it. Folks that have watched football games with me, Bryce has heard me say it. If that's targeting, everybody go in the locker room, take your pads off, and put flags on, because you can't. That's why we watch football. That's why we all love football. Is at times those big hits that change the game. It fires everybody up. It doesn't fire you up, and it worries you. If you're that worried about safety, don't watch the game. Don't watch football. I'm off my soapbox, Bryce.
No, I wanted to keep you there. Can you hear me, by the way? You good? We're good to go now?
Yeah.
I wanted to keep you there because that'll go on social media, and I didn't want to mess up the thing. No, look, we've talked so much about this, right? I mean, it is. Dr. Bob says this. He goes, I've seen the literal brains of former football players. I don't think the rule changes are going to help. It's going to happen regardless. Yeah, it's a violent sport. Here's my thing with this is a lot of the comments on the video that we posted today about did Georgia Tech get robbed in that kind of sense. What, my take in this is like, and I'll be honest with you, and we kind of talked about this in our text group about, earlier today. If they'd have thrown the flag, I would have hated it in the sense that I hate the targeting rule, but by the definition of the law, I understand it. Now, a lot of people said that he launched himself. I don't know. When you see launching, you know what launching is. That wasn't launching. That's just being a fan and being upset and emotional. And we've all been there. I think so.
And you have every right to be a fan and be emotional about it.
Exactly. But I'll say this. Let's flip it on its head. And I'm going to say this because I know he's going to watch. If that was Kyle Eifert out there on the field, and he met Nate Frazier in the hole, and it's a 4th and inches, 4th and 1, whatever the play was, and he stops him, you don't see it. You see Georgia Tech complaining. You see Georgia Tech fans saying, well, that's soft. That's soft. That's what that is.
That's a football play.
That's a football play. Now, let's extrapolate that. We'll use that word for the 4th time tonight. Further, the comment was also thrown out there that anytime somebody lowers the head, there's intent to hurt. And I don't first off, lowering your head and tackling and playing football, you're putting yourself at risk. Now, I've always asked this question too, and so let me say this too, because I don't want to get too far down the rabbit trail with this. It's two things for me. If they would have called targeting, would I have been mad? No, because that's probably what the rule says it is. Outside of launching, it's what the rule says it is. On the other hand, I would hate for that to be called targeting, because that's football. That's meeting a guy in the hole, and that's what that is. You're not going to convince me, because I'll tell you this: what else was Dan Jackson supposed to do? Run up there like this, not tackle him low, which you're now forcing people to do if you don't want him to go up high. Which he didn't go up high on him; he just lowered his head. Haynes King balls up to him to absorb the contact. I'm not saying it's Haynes King's fault. I'm just saying he absorbs the contact. If Dan Jackson doesn't do anything, he gets run over. So we just to allow defensive players just to get run over and so they don't have penalties. So that's where I sit with this. It's not that I don't think it could have been called targeting. It could have. Yeah. We've seen, like I said on last night's show, which people just opted not to listen to this part of it. I don't think I've seen targeting called for way less in situations. I just hate the targeting call in general. I am 110% for let's throw out targeting and let's call personal fouls on unnecessary roughnesses for egregious hits. We've all seen them. Go back to when Shedeur Sanders 2 weeks ago got hit in the below the legs. That's stupid. No one needs to do that kind of hit. But
that was far more intent of harm on a quarterback than the hit on Haynes King.
Dan Jackson's not trying to hurt Haynes King, and they're not going to. Now, that's not what happened. It's not reality. Now, the reality in which a fan lives in, that might be your reality. I'm not going to tell you how to fan. I'm just telling you that's yes, it's a football play. It's two guys meeting. It's Oklahoma drill. So is that? I mean, we've just decided that Oklahoma drill is now not okay anymore because it leads to brain injuries. Dr. Bob said right here, and I will say this. Go back to it because he's seen the brains. He doesn't think it'd change anything. I'm going to take the doctor's opinion. So there's my data point for everybody.
Yeah, I mean, we don't want to have players out here trying to hurt themselves and hurt each other, right? We don't want that. We've never said we want that.
No one's advocating for egregious James Harrison style hits on people. We're not advocating to go back to that.
Why not go with like college basketball, flagrant 1, flagrant 2? I mean, if you are out here late, cheap shots, I mean, that can cause serious harm to somebody, yeah, you probably should be ejected from the game. But if you're trying to make a football play, and we see a lot of these targeting calls where the ball carrier lowers their head first. In
the situation, what are they supposed to do? Yeah. Like, what is a defender supposed to do in that situation?
It comes down to this. It's people writing rules that have not played the game, that don't understand the intricacies, that don't understand the speed of the game when you're out on the field. I think that's what it comes down to. Because when you look at all these plays in frame by frame, slow motion, they look far worse than their actual outcome.
I'm 9 times out of video. So, because I just think that there's a lot of people pointing at different instances. Well, see that.
And Gavin brings up a great point. Trevor Lawrence. Well, it's not a great point. Saying Trevor Lawrence, it was clean. It was not clean, first of all. But take the two extremes here. The play in clean old fashioned hate, and that just absolutely egregious, ridiculous, boneheaded hit on Trevor Lawrence. He's sliding. He's giving himself up, and the Texans DB just come and cold cocks him. I mean, that deserves an ejection.
Well, can you still hear me, by the way? I'm going to play this.
Can
you still hear me now?
Yes.
You can still hear me now?
I can still hear you.
So it's just something with the audio there. Okay. So I want y'all to watch this. Now, here's where people have a problem. He's running and he puts his head down. He never launches himself. Let's take a step back and let's take off the gold-colored glasses, take off the red and black glasses, and let's just be a college football observer. Dan Jackson does not launch himself here. He doesn't. He puts his head down. You can see King start to brace a little bit for impact right there. We see the shoulders go down, okay? We're all on the same page here? You see what I'm talking about, Will?
Yep. I see
Okay.
what you're saying.
His helmet gets hit. Somebody in the comments decided to take the stance that Haynes King's head almost snapped back and halfway off. I'd love what you're smoking if you see that in this, because I got a 5-month-old, 6-month-old tomorrow. It might take the edge off a little bit for me. Okay, heads down. I'm cool if you call targeting right there, based off of what the penalty says, the criteria
Based
of the
on the
penalty.
rules, yeah.
I'm cool with that. I have a problem with the targeting rules. That's my whole stance. That is my whole stance. He leads with the crown as targeting, period. Yeah, I'm not saying
here's the two spectrums. You get Bailey's comment and then Sam. He's making a football play.
Watch it one more
I
time.
lean more toward that's a football play, but you have to acknowledge the way the rule is written. Yes, he leads with the crown, but it's also the indicators, the forcible contact to the head or neck area. If Haynes King doesn't, brace for impact and duck down, he hits him square in the chest. He doesn't even hit his face mask. And at that point, what is Dan Jackson supposed to do? He doesn't launch. I see a football play.
We also got told in the comments, Will, that we don't know anything about ball. We probably never worn a jock strap.
Matt's exactly right.
Yes.
That Sam and Bailey are both right.
Yeah. Bailey says they make that rule to protect Dan Jackson this year and not Haynes King. You're not. So, okay, you're protecting a defender who the only other option for him to do in that scenario is, by the way, is to just run up to him like this and get trucked. That's the only other option, which would negate the whole concept of what football is. So you can't have it like that. That's the problem with me with this is if they'd have thrown the targeting penalty, if they'd thrown the flag and called targeting, I was in that stadium, man, 92,000 people would have gone nuts and freaked out. The other 500 or 1,000 Tech fans would have loved it. And I would have at the end of the day been like, yeah, I get it. But based off the criteria, I understand why that's called. I have a problem with the rule. And it's not because it went against Georgia or whatever. I just have a problem with the rule, and I have maintained that regardless of the teams involved. I have a problem with it. So Goldfellow says the football play by the rules as written is targeting, but that rule as written is flawed. That is. I want people to understand this. That is, and I don't want to speak for you. That is our stance. That's our stance on not just this, but as a whole. It is what it is.
Period.
Leading with the crown is how you break your neck. Of course, if head is up, it's a clean hit, but it wasn't. If his head is up, he's going to get run over if his head is up. That's the problem too. Also want to throw this in here too. And I'm not meaning that I'm not trying to insult people's football IQ here. But it's really easy for us to go back and look at that clip and for us to sit there and say, well, here it is, Will. This is what it looks like. You have to understand that these guys are playing the game of football at the SEC, ACC level, FBS level is crazy fast. When you start adding in elements to a violent sport, one that requires not even like the reaction time has to be unbelievable. You allow guys to have to think, and that's when they get hurt. When you're trying to position your body to catch somebody, that's what they want defensive players to do. They want them to catch people onto them. Well, when it's 4th and 1, from the time you're in Pee Wee football, you're taught to go knock the snot out of that guy. So you can't have football and have this rule. That's my issue with it. Sam says the game demands a certain level of intensity, demands physicality. To not respect those makes you lose football games. People said there's no targeting in the NFL, which that's
talking
why.
About Cooper DeJean's tackle.
Yeah, there's personal fouls. Let's do that. Let's go back to unnecessary roughness. That's what I want. When you see egregious hits, and I'm going to tell you one thing. Here's a couple things. Well, and we can get done with this because I'm tired of talking about this game in general. You didn't lose this game, okay? No. You didn't lose this game because of that call. You blew a 17.0 lead. You had multiple ample opportunities. Does that change the momentum
and the
swing
officiating?
Of the game? 110%.
Officiating was
tons of calls.
Was bad for both teams.
Yes.
I mean, there was a ton of missed calls for both teams.
How about you don't miss that field goal from 15 yards early in the game? How about you find a way through 8 overtimes to get in? Like, people don't like hearing that because they just want to pin it on the referees because they don't want to take responsibility. And I'm not saying Brent Key or Buster Falcon, these people, it's just fans because you want something to be mad about when your team didn't execute. Did it play a role in this game? Of course,
we all
it played
do
a role
that
in
as
this game.
fans too. We all do that as fans.
Yeah, everybody does that.
I don't think you're pointing the finger and telling people how to be a fan. But I mean, in the reality, you gotta execute. You gotta execute when it's time to execute.
Yeah. Goldfellow says this: targeting so inconsistent. Called Efer was targeting at NC State, but that got reviewed and overturned. Yes. I'm telling y'all, I hate the penalty, and and I hate that there's so much gray area because now you're leaving it in the hands of the zebras, for lack of better words, to make the call. And we see there's such a such a swing on that.
Think back, Northern Little League. What were we always taught when we're hitting with 2 strikes?
Don't question 3-finger Larry. But yes,
don't leave it up to the umpire.
Yeah,
because they're bad. They're bad. Officials are bad at every level.
Yeah,
don't leave it up to the officials.
But this has turned into, Will. This has turned into conspiracy theories against. I mean, this has blown into. There it goes, showing that they want teams in the playoff. Which, okay, yeah, certain calls might be made, but like. You should have never been in the spot. You should have never been in the position. And I'm not saying that completely justifies missing a call, but it also doesn't completely justify the ability to that. Now, Goldfellow says this. I don't understand why people are arguing about the targeting call when the PI calls what was egregious. That was on 4th down, would have given us the ball at 14. Yeah, that was awful. A ball was tipped. It is what it is. Austin said, yeah, it's really unbelievable to hear all the complaining from a team who blew a 17-point lead. Many opportunities to not even let the refs in that game. I agree. Blade says needs to be taken out of the game when the rules experts are wrong 80% of the time and then take it out. Take it out.
Who are these rules experts? Former officials.
Yeah. It's a good old boys club.
Who were getting targeting calls wrong when they were officials.
Yeah. Well, what a night. What a night. What a show. It is. Matt Hubbard says 4th and goal call doesn't happen. We don't blow a 17-point lead. Maybe. That's what you can't.
Again, I mean,
I'm
said
not.
It last night too. If Kirby Smart kicks the extra point in the 3rd quarter instead of going for 2, this game doesn't even go to overtime.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know, man. I don't know. Officiating's bad. It is bad, and I love that. Like, I'm going to post a clip of this. And people are not, and I know they're not watching the whole video because the comments come in at like the 2-minute mark and the video is 13 minutes long, right? And it's just shouting from the rooftops. I don't know. It is what it is. Tough. Okay, well, we appreciate you watching. We appreciate you tuning in. Sorry that the phone lines didn't work. We'll have to figure that out. But, man, it is a busy week. College football. We'll be back again tomorrow night, 7:30 Central, 8:30 Eastern, to preview Conference Championship weekend. Gonna be a fun one. Cannot wait. We'll be in Charlotte. We'll have all the coverage out there in Charlotte from SMU, Clemson. And I'm just going to go ahead and say I pray to God SMU wins this game because Clemson gets on my nerves. Did you see Dabo Swinney today? We'll have to talk about it tomorrow, but that was good Lord. Well, Will, just before you get out of here, please tell the people what you put in our Twitter group about what Dabo and Hugh Freeze need to go do, what they need to do.
Oh, yeah. So Hugh Freeze and Dabo Swinney, they could make 10 times the amount of money that they're making now. And keep in mind, they're making millions of dollars coaching college football. If they retire and they go start a church and just become televangelists, they will make 10 to 20 times the amount of money they're making now as college football coaches.
I'm with you. I don't disagree.
Just go preach.
Hugh got saved. That's the problem. Went up to Liberty and got saved. If he didn't get saved, they'd probably be winning ball games.
Look, don't ever forget, Clemson was the first school to build their program on NIL. God's name, image, and likeness.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
That's a real quote from Dabo Swinney.
We'll catch you next time here in the Crowded Booth.
Pile in here and make yourself feel at home. The Crowded Booth is coming on. The Crowded Booth with Bryce Koon.